If you could draw out your force curves for what you were like in paddling and just kind of what you envisioned your power distribution would be like in the stroke, that would be awesome.
So I'm going to tell you what mine was honestly like, so maybe if I hold it. So my profile would actually be pretty similar whether I was training or racing. The only time if I wasn't going so well, and in fact it was probably a bit steeper than that, but so I was pretty good at getting it on, so I'd be pretty steep. And if we think you've got the force curve of your stroke, but then also when you look at telemetry, you've got obviously like the acceleration and the run of the hull in the boat. So one thing that I did well, and I'll also say what I did not so well, was I was quite good at getting in and on in that first bit and getting connected. So in the double, that's really important, because if you can sort of get hold of the hull and accelerate it pretty quickly, that was quite characteristic of when we were going well. And especially in London, we'd stop it decelerating into the catch as much as it could have done, and we'd pick it right up straight away. One thing I didn't do well, obviously I had this like bump in the second half of the drive. So one thing I tried to work on a lot in 2017 when it got a bit better was smoothing this out, because ideally what you want is you want to get sort of up to peak force. I mean, this is never going to happen for someone. You want to hold it through the middle and then it'll just come off at the end.
Yeah, like a box.
Yeah, that's like ideal, but really in theory, I've seen Olympic gold medalist force curves and they don't look like that, because it's really hard.
Yeah.
So mine would have this bump. The bump would come from, so I'd be like legs, and then sort of the last bit of my legs might slip off, and my hips and legs weren't as connected to each other through that like last third of the drive. So for me, it was about trying to think, how can I smooth out my drive rather than just being really violent with the hips, because I did like to roll quite like an accelerated hippie rhythm.
Yeah.
But actually, how can I smooth this out and maybe make this a bit more like that than have a bump? Which I did do a bit, but I think to an extent, your force curve is a bit your force curve. I think it's a bit like a fingerprint. You can change it a bit, and you can change it more when you're younger.
Yeah.
But I'd say all through my career, it was pretty like that. It just depended on how big the bump was.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of double peaks and bumps in who I coach my athletes with.
Yeah.
So, and spoke with Jack about this as well. And he has a double bump.
Yeah.
And I think the force curve we're doing here.
Yeah.
So trying to grab a hold of this level of power.
Yeah.
And then try and accelerate that.
Yeah.
Okay, you can probably do that for maybe a K before you are dead.
I think like there's a theory and then there's a real life.
Absolutely. In an ideal world, you want it to look like that. In reality, you can't.
Yeah.
And the best crews that I rode with, we had a double peak and the way the boat responds when you think about the application of power, for me, you have a quick connection.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're not trying to pick up the world. Okay.
Yeah.
You're actually really patient through the middle of the drive, so you've still got your shoulders in front of your hips.
Yeah.
And then you really push your hips through hard. Okay, so that you're accelerating that boat. That boat is nearly at its highest force.
Yeah.
And then as you come out of the water, the boat then responds to you a lot better.
Yeah.
So that because the boat's still accelerating at that point, you haven't dropped off the face of the earth because you're blowing up. And there is just that rhythm that comes.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you still had that double peak, and that's what you had. And being very successful with it.
Yeah, and I do think I would never. This might be me though, because you get different athletes. Like some people love data, some people love looking at telemetry and force curves.
Yeah.
Some people are really on feel. I was more on feel and rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a bit more like the artsy, softy touch side.
Yeah.
I would say I think the thing that matters probably more than this, if you're in a crew boat, for your guys that were on the water, I think what matters more is that everyone in the boat, they accelerate and peak at the same time,
Yeah.
because that's the bit you can feel
Absolutely,
where
yeah.
it runs. It doesn't matter if, you know, you've got a perfect like symmetrical curve. If someone's like this and someone's like this, like that's not going to go so fast. I'd
Yeah.
rather have like some double bumps or some little like lumps on the curve, but that acceleration and that pickup is peaked together. I think that's the most important. And yeah, as I said and you said, like I've seen Olympic gold medalists with all sorts of force
Yeah,
curves. I don't think that there's this like cookie cutter picture perfect way to row.
100%,
I think there's a
yeah.
lot of ways to skin a cat.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Interesting. Cool. No,